All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Our Digital Asset Conversations from the Edge series promotes knowledge sharing and thought leadership through targeted discussions with industry experts. We turn to our guests to provide specific, high-impact insight on the emergence of digital networks for financial services and the use of innovative technologies such as smart contracts and distributed ledgers for making all of the transformation happen. The perspectives from experts on the key themes that are driving the digital ecosystem and growth across the industry is what we get the unique time to spend on today. And so today, we are delighted to have two such experts with us to discuss the transformation that is occurring in the syndicated loan market. We have Cynthia Sachs, who is the founding CEO of Versana, and she'll tell us a little bit about her organization and the great things they're doing. And the partnership that they have with Ellen Hefferan, who is Executive Vice President of Operations and Accounting for the Loan Syndications Trading Association, the LSTA. So with that, let's get right into it. Ellen, given your background and the breadth of industry engagement you have through your organization, could we start off with a grounding in the loan market operations? How would you describe it in terms of the current landscape?
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. Well, the LSTA has been the leading advocate for the U.S. loan market since 1995. And our aim has always been to foster cooperation and coordination among all loan market participants. And on the operations side, that would include collaboration among all loan participants, including the software providers, who have built systems used across the front, the middle, the back office, across agent banks, dealers, buy-side institutions, custodians, trustees, fund administrators, all third-party providers in our market. And the current landscape is that these systems aren't necessarily interoperable with one another. They've got a variety of processes that are not exactly easy to change. But traditionally, it hasn't been easy for lenders to verify information related to their positions, related to outstanding commitments, unfunded positions, contract level details, interest, principal, fee payments, accruals, transaction histories, etc. And yet the positions, if you think about it, for a lender in an agent system should really mirror the positions and the information related to it in the lender portals and in the lender platforms. So frankly, there's work to be done as we focus on capturing and encouraging timely, accurate, and complete data in all these systems. And that's, I think, the interest right now in terms of data at the LSTA and its participants.
There's a really good foundation, because I think also too, when you consider the interest in the activities in this market and doing more loans and getting, particularly as interest rate rise, getting more out into the market, getting a handle on that data so that it can support, as you say, interoperability and scale, are probably two really critical changes or transformation activities from the past. Cynthia, can we turn to you, because so much of what Versana is doing is making a considerable impact in what Ellen is talking about, in transforming the corporate credit market broadly across syndicated loans and private credit, and drawing in and on the participation of several leading agent banks, which, candidly makes you a bit unique. Not all of our listeners may be fully aware. Can you first share an overview of your platform and the enterprise solution, and talk through some of the benefits for both the agents and, as Ellen mentioned, the buy side as well?
Of course. Thank you, Kelly. Happy to. And thank you for having me here with Ellen. I really appreciate the time that everyone's taken to put on this webinar. So I'm really happy to provide an overview and highlight the key benefits of the Versana platform. First, though, I do want to set the stage for those of you who are in this webinar who might not be aware of the broadly syndicated loan market and private credit, and kind of the problem that Versana is solving for. So just so everyone's aware, these syndicated loans, private credit loans, are large loans to companies that are borrowing big amounts of capital Perhaps it's for an acquisition, perhaps it's to pay a dividend or refinance some existing debt. And these large loans can run well into the billions of dollars and are syndicated to thousands of lenders across the market. So what makes this market so complex, and Ellen kind of hit on this, is that it's a very dynamic market with many moving pieces and data. And it's highly flexible for the borrowers, but operationally, it's been very difficult for the participants in this market to track all of it. Unlike bonds, it's a floating rate market, it's payable, it's traded. So it's constantly in a state of movement, and cash flows from the borrower and secondary trades are unpredictable. So with that, the market has grown massively over the last decade, even more so than ever post the 2008 crisis, I'll say. Deals were getting bigger and bigger, more lenders in these deals, and operations, as Ellen was pointing out, have just not kept pace to support the growth, and systems aren't interoperable. So the traditional ways that data has been disseminated into this market via emails, via faxes, are just rife with delays, error-prone data sets, and causing inconsistencies. And as Ellen was saying, this is across the lenders, this is across their service providers, trustees, custodians, and everyone has to maintain their books and records, and they have to do that right on behalf of the party that they're representing. So it's very important that Versana now foundationally changes all of that. So let me talk a little bit about our platform, because I wanted to set the stage on our asset class. Yeah. So our platform is a multi-tenant platform. It's a digital solution end to end. So no more emails, no more faxes, I just mentioned, and no more inconsistencies. We're bringing the highest quality golden source data to the market. We're digitally connecting to agents' books and records in real time. So since it's coming from so many agent banks, we're normalizing the data, we're centralizing that data onto one platform so that the market could consume that data digitally. And we're creating this for the first time ever. And that means straight-through processing and self-service capabilities to make the market way more efficient and reduce operational friction and lower costs for everybody. So with that, everyone, front, middle, back office, can now play from the same playbook. And therefore, we can increase operational efficiencies, reduce operational risk, and help the market function in a healthier way so that it can grow in a scalable way. And really, Versana is setting that foundation now to enable that scalability.
And ultimately, what you're doing is really aiding the capital markets by getting the ability for more capital, more balance sheet, more credit to be available to an ever-increasing set of market participants. So when I think, Ellen, about what Cynthia's just said, it's a complex market that prior to the existence of Versana was taking upwards of 30 to 60 days for many loans to be done, which she's describing from a multi-tenant perspective, and yet addressing the complexity of the workflow from cash to reporting across that platform is a unifying platform. Can you talk a little bit about, just reflecting back on your comments in setting sort of the landscape foundation, talk a little bit about why a unifying platform will help the various market participants?
It'll help because she's going to be the golden source, or hopefully. If you take all the agent banks across our market, and we must have 80 of them who apply for CUSIP. So there are a number of agents across the market. If I'm a lender in these various deals that they're agenting, and I want to verify my position, I today have to verify with an individual agent. It's difficult, right? If you take one golden source, you bring in all the agent data, and you put it in one place, I can go in as in real time. This is beautiful, in real time, and know my position for any facility that I have across the spectrum. So it's just easier. It's easier, and that's not going to benefit just operations. That's going to benefit trading. It's going to benefit someone who can, perhaps this is connected to a front order management system, and they can go in and they can see their positions and they can see what cash is going to come in. We're hitting a quarter end soon, and I'll talk more about that later, but you'll see the cash that's going to come in. So managing that is like another beautiful part of this. If you can get all this data in one position, one place, it's going to benefit so many aspects of the market. It isn't funny.
I mean, what you're both describing is going fully from the trading, as you're saying, Ellen, all the way through to operations. And we're talking about something in the capital markets that has been so operationally intensive for so long. It's almost hard to fathom. It's almost actually a silly question to say, what are the benefits? Because it's like, how long do you have to be able to talk about how it's impacting or it has the potential to impact the market participants? But one thing I'm struck by, notwithstanding the fact that there's a great amount of industry dialogue and coordination via the LSTA, is that this is also a hugely competitive market. I kind of joke about it when I think about your client set, Cynthia, and I think none of them really like each other very much, because it's a highly intense, it's an intensely competitive, highly high return type of business. And so they don't really actually want to give that up to each other. But equally, they want to make sure that data, that one source that both of you are talking about, is not inadvertently shared or inappropriately shared with others. Can you talk a little bit about how you get at that with your platform? How do you ensure that the privacy of the activity and data of each of your participants is held and controlled in the way they intend?
That's a great question, and absolutely a key tenet to the design of our platform at the core. So syndicated loans are private financial instruments and typically privately held by large institutional loan managers or banks. And therefore, the confidentiality of the loan portfolio compositions is paramount, actually, and is really at the base of what we built here. So Versana was designed specifically with that as top of mind and is a strict permission-based system. So you can imagine with the many banks that are already involved in Versana, and maybe I should take this moment to mention who they are. We have 8 bank shareholders, which the audience might not know. So our shareholders are JP Morgan, Bank of America, Credit Suisse, Citibank, Deutsche Bank, Morgan Stanley, Wells, and US Bank, as largely agent banks in this market. So the data is coming from their golden source books and records. You can only imagine, right, that they have held us to the highest standards for data security and privacy.
I literally can only imagine.
You can only imagine what we're doing internally day to day to ensure that that is, of course, part of everything, the fabric of everything that we do. And we have a permission-based design. So users on the platform can only see and access data that they are entitled to see based on that ledger being, that lender, I should say, being a named lender of record in the deal. So that's huge, that you've already been vetted through that process. You're able to get that data because you are actually in the transaction. So you've already gone through a lot of the processes on the bank side. And also, Kelly, as you well know, we also use digital asset in our tech stack. Yeah. So that's our immutable distributed ledger technology, which of course, smart contracts that will lend us eventually, right? Perhaps in the future, I'll say for blockchain, et cetera, but not now. We're using the distributed ledger piece with that as kind of the forward view. And so with that, privacy and permissioning is absolutely paramount for Versana, and really is at the core of everything we do.
Yeah, it's really one of the best examples in the industry. I was just relaying to you earlier some of the feedback from a conference last week that we were at, where the solution and the business that you all have created was a topic of some great dialogue, because it is just a great example and one of the earliest examples of creating a network, not compromising on all of the points that you've just made about privacy and the ability to maintain controls and risk around the data that is supporting these transactions, yet at the same time go back to the points that you both have made about interoperability, multi-tenancy, and scalability. So I really do credit to all of you. And I can actually say, I can attest to the rigor with which you and your clients wrote requirements and did testing is probably one of the best practices examples that we know of. And now obviously you're getting the benefits of that, which is great. So Ellen, if we can just reflect on this now. So we've talked about some of the challenges in the current state and what's starting to, if not already, transforming to some great degree as a result of the work that Cynthia and her team are doing. Can you talk a little bit about how you see a little bit of a future lens, because you have such a breadth of experience with the LSTA. How do you see the market changing with digital activities, digitization, particularly of loan operations?
I mean, one thing that I think will change is the whole aspect of providing notices at quarter end, at month end. Literally, an agent bank will stop processing trades for settlement from 2 to 5 days or so at month and quarter end. If you look at a calendar today, today's the 26th, the payment will probably go out, at month end. They probably have closed the books for settlement pretty soon, if not tomorrow. And do the math, multiply that by 12 potentially, and there's quite a bit of days that trades cannot settle, which is not helpful to us.
They're just taken out of the market, right? That's your point about
they're kind of dead days when it comes to settling. You can trade all you want, but in terms of settling, it's more difficult because, again, they're trying to lock down a lending group. And part of why they're locking it down is so they can send notices to the lenders regarding the next contract period. This will be your rate, your margin, your credit spread adjustment, your all-in rate, et cetera. And this will be the period of time, a month, whatever, 3 months. But the reality is, if all that were in a system that could be accessed, if you had to look at it, you could look at it and access it, right? Or even better, through middleware, through APIs, et cetera, what's in their system is in my system. Well, you don't necessarily have to send notices. And the trouble with the thing right now is that if you send notices today to 800 lenders in a deal or some number like that, and you decide to settle some trades, well, those lenders change. Maybe not a lot of them, but they do change. And in some systems, you have to resend notices out to 800 to give the notice to the people who have either sold or bought. All right. So I think you can eliminate all of that. That takes away a lot of the emails, the faxes, and just have it feed through to the next system. But it does have to have interoperability. I can't overstress that. And that's not going to be overnight. We need a little bit of patience in this, but it will simplify all of that. And if I then get more days, listen to me, to settle trades, our agents can do that work. And right now it's a little bit rough. It'll also simplify reconciliation, et cetera. All of it would be easier.
Yeah, simplification is never bad when it comes to these types of transactions. Cynthia, I'm conscious of the fact that we're talking about this, but you're actually doing it. So can you talk a little bit about how Versana attacks this particular aspect of the solution?
Yeah. So with Versana, we truly believe this is a game changer for the market and that everyone wins. And Ellen was kind of talking about this, in her commentary that from agents, lenders, and their service providers, having this data real time is just overall a win for the market. And so kind of going through that, right? How do they all win? So agent banks essentially achieve an incredible amount of operational efficiencies through the transparency of the platform because they can now serve their clients better and also help improve their balance sheet management. I think Ellen mentioned that in the earlier part of the webinar, and their capabilities to do that and to reduce regulatory capital needs. So for them, this is a huge win, right? Number one. Lenders now, as Ellen was saying, receive digital notices in real time. So no more emails and faxes, as we said. And they achieve straight-through processing and self-service capabilities, right? So now they see exactly what the agent bank would see. They don't need to call.
And when they see it, right? It's literally the same time, yeah.
Right. So right now they're kind of blind. They don't know exactly what the agent records show. It's like not having your bank statement, right? You don't see it. So now you can see it. You don't have to call over to the agent bank and wait for a response back or email them. Now you can actually see essentially, your, their ledger, and you can obviously then, as also Ellen said, reconcile to your ledger. So there's huge benefits there, particularly at month and quarter end, when there's most activity. And then even the service providers, right? The third-party service providers who really help these funds administer their loans, trustees, custodians, et cetera. It takes the friction out of their processes in the same exact way. So it increases their efficiencies. It reduces their costs to serve their fund admin clients better, which are essentially our clients. So Kelly, quite frankly, it's a win-win for everybody. And we're really excited to move as quickly as we can to make this a reality. And, we've already, and I just say, not to say it's not a reality, we absolutely are already built.
You're already doing it.
We already have clients. We already have, an incredible number of agent banks and buy side onboarded and using the platform. So we're just thrilled with the momentum that we've gotten, and we're going to continue. And of course, we're a very early stage company, but we have created straight-through processing. It actually is a reality. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's not kind of a pipe dream for the future. It has happened and is happening.
Actually, to pick up on that point, because it is worth stressing, we're not talking about something that you're thinking of doing. It's something, and I remember the day, it was November 18th of last year, I remember it very specifically, is when the platform went live, and it's subsequently grown considerably since then, not the least of which is, to your point, doubling the amount of agent banks that you're working with in a rather short period of time, which is, frankly, a testament to the design and the way you all are running it. So can I pull on that thread a little bit more? I want to make sure that we're not just simply talking about the creation of loans and how they're managed up to the point of getting them to be live and sort of issued, so to speak. Can you talk a little bit about what you're also doing, the features and functionalities that are available to monitor and manage loan performance?
Yeah. So just let me kind of step back and say the main feature of the platform, right, stems from these digital notices in real time that we've been talking about. So that's kind of the core. But with that, right, and just so everyone's aware, borrowers are required in their credit agreements to provide these notices to the agent banks on their cash flows and events as they're happening. And that could be, as Ellen said, I think earlier, principal and interest payments, floating rate contract, rollover elections, et cetera. So there's a lot swirling around that. So
and not always predictable, right? It's
and not always predictable. And that is the kind of the complication, and why they call syndicated loans a complex asset class. It's because it's constantly moving pieces. These floating rate contracts are elected by the borrower. They could elect, you don't know what they're going to elect, a 3-month contract, or they can elect a 6-month contract, or they can elect an overnight. Now, so far, if I said LIBOR anywhere in this, please forgive me. It just might have come out that way. But
no, you didn't. It's all good.
Okay. So you don't know what the company's going to choose. You don't know when that's going to roll over, right? And you don't know when they might make a prepayment. You probably know when they're going to make an amortization payment because that's in the credit agreement. But a trade, you don't know exactly when your trader or your PM is going to decide to make a credit decision to buy more or less. There's a lot of things that are not predictable, as we were just saying earlier. So these notices, right, give the visibility and consistency. I'm just kind of repeating a little bit. I don't mean to, but to really ultimately make better decisions. So having the transparency into the global level information, right, transaction history by position, by fund, as well as the floating rate contract details, knowing your weighted average base rate, right, because you see now the contracts on the platform, right? And the pricing of those. Now that SOFR is call it 4 or 5%, it's meaningful. And then a spread, and then whatever fees might be on top of that, or discount or premium paid for that, right? There's real yield now in these loans, unlevered, right? Yields that are really happening. And so everybody needs to know this information, and it's just a huge benefit for the loan market overall. And we talk about operations, right? It's key, and what we're building is key and foundational to operations, absolutely. But this will also help other parts of the businesses, trading, portfolio management, risk, everything. So this foundation is really the key to be able to start there, but of course expand into other parts of the loan ecosystem.
Yeah, no, it's we keep saying foundational and transformational.
Yeah,
those words tend to be overused, but really not in this setting.
Not in this case. And I think we say that because we want to set the kind of the benchmark on this, because there's so much to build from here. But this market has needed this foundation, this really solid start with data, with interoperable technology, right? To be able to then be able to make other change. So this is very game changing, and it will continue.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, just to give a bit of a nod. I mean, obviously, anybody who's listening knows I think highly of the solution that you've made, and I make no full transparency on that. But what I do think is also important, or is implied, if not stated in what you're saying, is there's also a pretty big sense of responsibility that you and your team have brought into this, of not only just creating something that is going to generate new revenue and get more loans done, but you are talking about creating an infrastructure that the market can build on for the next generation, and maybe even beyond. Like, you've thought about network and multi-tenancy and interoperability and the importance of permissioning and privacy in your design. It wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't something you searched for as you were building out the functionality. It's literally at the core of what you've done. And I think that's why you get to a point where you see such incredible benefits accruing even at this early stage.
Yeah,
But what I want to do now is just switch gears a little bit because, oh, no, please go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
This is a massive effort, not just by Versana, right, but also by our shareholders, by our banks. This was, if people on the call recall, this was a project within the banks early on, many years ago, right? So, and then kind of spun out into Versana, and there's tons of really brilliant people at the banks, also helping, right? Like you cannot do this alone. And I do want to shout out, yes, I do think we're, have an incredible foundation here that's been designed and built over actually, the course of a few years already. Versana really, is around for about a year and the product a year or so, but
the work on this has been going on for some time. Yeah.
By, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Credit Suisse, and Citi, I'll say as the founding shareholders, is a huge part of this. And we have a lot of people at those banks working with us to, help us get to this point. So
yeah, for sure. Good. Well, all of this actually, when I reflect on what you guys are saying, we're talking about a level of transparency that is heretofore never existed, a level of data availability and access that hasn't previously existed, a way for the multiple tenants and banks and lenders and other trustees, other industry entities to come work together. Ellen, something you said, or you had alluded to earlier in the conversation about it's an industry initiative that I think is also taking advantage of this and aiding the process further. So a recently announced open entity identifier created by CUSIP, the CEI. Could you talk a little bit about what that is and how it factors into all of this?
Sure. All right. A strategic component to the data transmission and consumption is that parties, deals, and facilities are uniquely identified, and that all loan systems utilize the same set of unique identifiers. So when you think about it, when agent banks build facilities into their system and new deals into their system, they uniquely identify them with a CUSIP. And when they give the data to Versana, it's going to come with a CUSIP, right? And however, with technology designed to optimize system interoperability and digitally connect the entire market, it became very apparent that there was a need in the corporate loan market for an open source entity identifier. So while we had the identifier that could be shared throughout, anybody can use it as a CUSIP, we did not have an open source entity identifier that all market participants could use, that all vendors could use without restriction. So given the LSTA's long history of working with CUSIP, I went back to them and said, you basically could create an entity identifier, right? And they agreed, and Versana, the LSTA, and CUSIP put our heads together, and they built the new identifier. So it's a CUSIP entity identifier. Short for that is CEI. And it's a 10-character long ID. Alpha is first, numeric is second. The rest are random, and then there's a check digit at the end. But each legal entity will have a CEI per jurisdiction, multi-managed funds. We have multi-managed funds in our world. They'll have a unique CEI based on the fund manager relationship. This is a concept people are very accustomed to, and we didn't really change it up much. But the idea is that it's open source, restricted to no one. You can go online, you can look up a CEI database, you can get the CEI of a given fund, a given bank once they all apply. And it's going to make life a lot easier to have it that way. So what I would suggest, though, to people listening to this is go on to CUSIP.com. There's a CEI user guide. It's also on the lsta.org website. And apply for these CEIs so that your systems are ready to accept the adoption of a streamlined digital workflow. So between that and also load CUSIPs into your system, because you're going to need those as well if you don't already have them. But you should have them because they come on your notices today.
Yep.
That's great. So if I think about it, we've spent a good chunk of time now talking about the transformation and the solution to it. But there's still an element of needing to communicate that to the industry to sort of get the message out, so to speak, on the opportunities and the detail of the transformation. Obviously, this is one way of doing it, but can you talk a little bit, and Ellen, maybe you could start first, some of the things that you're doing at LSTA to get the message out and to have more discussion like this for anybody who's listening who may want to learn a bit more.
Right. I mean, we have a number of working groups across the buy side, the custodians, the agents, et cetera. But probably the one thing to highlight is that we're going to be having our LSTA annual conference on October 12th. I'll be moderating 2 panels on that, but one of them is definitely called Transforming the Loan Market Through Real-Time Digital Data. So hopefully what I would do is encourage people to attend our conference that day. David Camp, who's the CIO of Versana, will be on the CTO, Chief Technology Officer, exactly. He will be on the panel. But in addition to Dave, we're going to have representation from software providers representing the agents, the buy side, the dealers. So it should be very, very interesting and insightful. And the idea is one of working together, and they are of the mindset now to start to do that. So I think this is going to be great. And we're going to take that through to committee work with them to really get some standards off the ground that will help to digitize the space and to literally make it interoperable.
Great. Thank you. Cynthia, can you add on to it? Things you're doing, I mean, while you're busy building all of this and implementing it, things you're doing to help sort of raise the level of awareness and education in the industry.
Yeah, of course. So listen, we're aggressively talking to all the loan market players every day, multiple times a day. So that includes banks and the buy side and the service providers. Also includes potential strategic partners, because, we've said this many times, but I will repeat, we don't need to build everything ourselves. If there are solutions already out there that are best in class, we're happy to consider partnerships as well. So we're really out there educating the entire market on the platform, so they can actually start thinking about how they're going to incorporate our enterprise solution into their workflows as soon as possible. Right now, a lot of the firms are going through the 24 budgeting. So we've been ahead of that. We've been talking to them about, where they see Versana in their plans. And we, of course, want them to start using the platform and kicking the tires so they see the value of the platform, right, and understand kind of what that value proposition is for them. Of course, workflows changing is never easy. So we're really trying to educate. And we've been doing this really even before the product was launched last year, educating the market. We're also sponsoring events. We will be, of course, at the annual LSTA conference on the 12th. We're excited about that. It is one of our big showcase conferences that we love to sponsor. Everyone is there. We have, a lot of folks that will come over. We have demos going at that conference. So anyone on the call who would like to get a demo who may not have gotten it yet, please come. We'd be very happy to show you the platform, and it's improving, I'll say, by the minute. We literally enhance the platform every 2 weeks is our sprint schedule. So it's probably even better than maybe what you saw last. And of course, the other part of this is we have really great relationships with our shareholder banks, which is really super helpful, as well as we have a very large buy-side advisory committee that we formed
That's great.
as our product was launching. I think it was even last year, Ellen, correct me if I'm wrong, but we really started to bring the market, particularly the buy side, into what we were doing, because everyone was very focused on us at that time being agent focused and bank focused. And it wasn't necessarily that we were, but we had to start somewhere. And it was very important to get the agent data and get those commitments, to be able to, build the platform and centralize it, et cetera. So centralize all that data. So with that, the buy-side committee has been very, very helpful in providing feedback, helps us prioritize along with the agent banks on their priorities, so that our roadmap is super robust, and that our tech teams and product teams can build for the future. So, we're really, doing what we can. It takes a village for all of this, but we're firing on all cylinders, and we really want to make change happen as quickly as possible.
So that's great. And let's pick up on that last point. Just one last question to each of you, sort of thematically the same type of question of, give us a lens into where we go from here. Cynthia, perhaps you can start. Just give us a view into Versana's strategy. What's next?
Yeah. So there's so many amazing features and new products on our roadmap. And our roadmap is long. So we obviously have the short-term view of what we need to do right now, and then, of course, a longer-term view. So right now, we are very focused on building the solid foundation, as we've talked about, and getting thousands of facilities on the platform across the market globally. So, that includes term loan A's, B's, delayed draws, which are very specific, kind of fully more, I'll say institutional, but we're focused on revolvers, which are very dynamic and very complicated to manage, both in the US and abroad, in Europe, et cetera. So multi-currency as well. Letters of credit are in our sites. And of course, taking this data and, as the core is, formed in a more solid way, as more data comes on, of course, talking to more agent banks about bringing their data on to really try to get 100% coverage or close to it for all the market participants. And that's kind of I'll say the nearer term roadmap. And then, of course, a lot more to do from there. But our product roadmap is really, really super exciting. And, literally, love seeing the team execute on it every day, to really make change for this marketplace.
Yeah, with the opportunity to work with the types of market participants you guys do, I can't imagine you ever have a shortage of great ideas in the roadmap. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, come our way. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Ellen, how about the last word? Can you give us your lens into the future of the loan market?
Yeah, I mean, my lens is that all these systems are interoperable, that we streamline and structure the digital data and the workflows. We eliminate many manual processes. I don't think we can forget that the new generation of people coming into our market were probably born with an iPhone and just completely are not interested in manual processes. It's not their world. It's not anything that makes an ounce of sense to them. So frankly, we need to get this done. We need to get to the point where no one is keying in data. That can afford problems and errors, et cetera, that nobody wants to have anyway. But honestly, people want to do more interesting work, I think, than anything that's manual. So to the extent that all of these systems can speak the same language, provide the same real-time data with accuracy, transparency, obviously avoid those notices, unnecessarily reconciliations people just don't want to sit and do that kind of work, frankly. And I don't blame them. I think we're beyond that. I think we're better than that. And I do think that we can collaborate now among all the vendors. I think that's key to embracing any kind of transformation and automation. But I think people have gotten to the point where they're genuinely interested in affecting change. It's not just Versana. It's across all the vendors that I speak with, and I speak with a lot of them. And I think they're willing to collaborate. So fingers crossed that is the key to making this all gel. For our next generation.
Right? Leave them with transparency and scale.
Yes.
Well, listen, yeah. Well, thank you both. I mean, this has just been a fantastic dialogue. I so appreciate, as does everybody who's listening, the level of detail and just leadership that you brought. I mean, you could just feel that it's not just simply something you're doing, but it's palpable how important you feel this is. And as I alluded to earlier, a bit of a sense of responsibility that you and your teams have for really changing the industry, not in simply a way to do more, but to do it well. So thank you for all of your insights and for all of the work you've done to date. We look forward to more. I encourage everybody who has spent time with us today or listening into after to learn more about Versana and LSTA and the great work that they're doing, particularly the conference that Ellen has mentioned.
Yes.
And last, I'll say thank you from Digital Asset for joining us today. We're privileged to be a partner to Versana and to be part of the industry dialogue that LSTA is forming and holding, and we find it to be incredibly powerful, even for an organization that has our seat in the industry and helping to transform this. So we're thrilled to be able to work with both of you. Thanks everyone for joining. Join us for our next conversation from the Edge in October, where we will focus on the repurchase agreement and securities financing market. Thanks everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.